12 people are in hospital and dozens evacuated after a fire at a high-rise building in St. James Town in Toronto earlier today. So as you're seeing, you're looking live right now at the scene on Bleecker Street, just east of Sherbourne. Toronto Fire says they were called just after 10:30 this morning. They arrived to flames and heavy smoke from an apartment on the 6th floor before it spread across 2 more levels. Paramedics have taken 7 residents to hospital. At least 1 is critically injured. They also took 5 officers to hospital for smoke inhalation. The fire has been knocked down since noon.
The firefighters battled their way down the hallway to extinguish the fire. It took quite a time to find the seat of the fire. Fire service at this point now continues to ventilate smoke and continues to respond for calls for service for those occupants that we have sheltered in place. Toronto Fire Service rescued several people from aerial ladders outside on the balconies on either side of the building and have transported them to the care of Toronto Paramedic Services.
Residents living in the affected areas have been sheltering in buses since being evacuated. Others were told to stay in their homes. One resident evacuated by police shared a video of the blaze from her balcony, saying at first she didn't believe the fire was real.
I was sleeping and then their fire alarm was going on for like half an hour. And usually we don't take it serious because there's always a fire alarm in our building. But my mom woke me up and she said it was a real fire. And then we smelled smoke and I couldn't breathe. And then I went out on my balcony and I saw the smoke and I saw everybody.
Crews notified Red Cross to help those displaced, and paramedics set up a triage tent to assess injuries. Mayor Chow was on scene thanking emergency workers for their quick response and care for the tenants, and saying TCHC will work to provide shelter and support.
I spoke to the head of the Toronto Community Housing. Every tenants that are evacuated will be housed, will be fed. Some of them are in the community center, and tonight they will have room in the shelter hotels.
Fire crews are still investigating the building and they have not confirmed what caused the fire. To the other big story we are tracking this weekend, after an already snowy week, a huge part of the province is under yet another winter storm warning, with some cities expected to see up to 40 centimeters of snow. And as Nama Weingarten reports, clearing one giant snow pileup after another is no easy feat.
If you thought these piles of snow were already bad, then brace yourselves and look around, because this weekend we're gonna get a whole lot more of it. Cities and towns all across Ontario will see yet another heavy snowfall this weekend, with some places expecting a pileup of up to 40 centimeters.
Our piles are so high because we're from Oakville. It's going to be worse today.
It's just so much snow. There's nowhere else to put it.
I'm kind of sad because I want to do fun things, but the snow is like making everyone be a homebody.
It's a little unnerving, but we're off to the Bahamas on Wednesday, so looking forward to that.
Better hope that flight gets out on time. Pearson Airport warned some might get delayed after already having to catch up with the delays after the storm earlier this week. Metrolinx also adjusting its GO train schedule and routes for some of its lines. And other delays might include your mail. Canada Post says they're suspending deliveries from Midland and Orillia and warned those in the GTA and Niagara region to expect setbacks until the snow is cleared.
The piles are just too high.
Toronto's Director of Transportation Services says because of the buildup, they'll have to put the snow in a truck and dump it elsewhere, meaning
this second cleanup will take longer than what we just recently experienced.
Which could also be a challenge in Mississauga, where it took 36 hours to clear that last snowfall, the biggest the city has seen since 2022.
A lot of our crews are resting right now because they put in more than a full day's work over the last few days, so they're getting some sleep and storing up some energy.
And maybe also storing salt. The head of Landscape Ontario is warning of a salt shortage in many parts of the province, stretching as far as the U.S.
Whether you're going to the grocery store or the hardware store, you might not be able to find a bag of road salt right now for your driveway or for your walkway. And if you do, the price of it might be really high.
So while you wait for the roads to clear, this snowplow driver says to keep patient.
We do our best. We try hard, and the hours are grueling. It's very hard to deal with 10, 15, 20 centimeters of snow at one place while 3 places are calling you to be there.
The heaviest snow is expected to come Sunday in many parts of the province. Nama Weingarten, CBC News, Toronto.
So as the storm continues to roll in through the province, police are advising people to avoid being on the roads as much as possible. And here's the OPP sharing some safety tips for those who do have to drive.
Obviously, with the amount of snow that we're anticipating, best course of action is to not be on the road whatsoever. If you have to be out on the road, make sure you give yourself plenty of time and plenty of distance. Remember that if you're on slippery roads and you apply your brakes aren't going to do what you're really hoping they're going to do. If for some reason you do end up getting into a situation where you're stuck in the snow or you're involved in a collision, don't get out of your car.
So here's a look right now outside Toronto. So the storm is well underway. And Sophia Kambalia joining us now with the first look at the weather. So, Sophia, I guess we're not exactly out of the woodworks of this snowmageddon.
No, we're only in the appetizer course. The main meal is coming into Sunday. The bottom line is, folks, postpone any non-essential travel for Sunday if you can. This is going to be a high-impact winter weather system. In fact, have a look at the eastern half of the country. Millions of Canadians will be impacted by this system. Not only will there be treacherous travel, but blowing snow and really hefty snowfall amounts. This is all being fed by cold air from the prairies. This is an active jet stream, a conveyor belt of storms, as you know. This is the hat trick, the third storm in a week, and this one is going to be a doozy. Look at the winter storm warnings. You saw it earlier there in a visual as well. I wouldn't be surprised, folks, if we even have the odd blizzard warning that comes up on Sunday as well. Let's take a hyper-focused look at this now. Snowfall totals all across the region. Yes, 25 to 35 centimeters. Locally up to 40. That includes some of you around the Golden Horseshoe and even into parts of eastern Ontario. Algonquin Highlands all the way into the nation's capital region and into Montreal. And some of those areas, special shout out to that QEW stretch between Grimsby and Hamilton, where winds could be whipping up that freshly fallen snow up to 30, even close to 40 kilometers an hour. This is very close to blizzard criteria in the urban cities. Very hard to meet, along with snowfall rates 2 to 3 centimeters an hour. That includes those of you later Sunday as this system pushes into parts of eastern Ontario. Here are the take-home messages, folks. Sunday is going to be really dicey travel, really intense east wind. There's a ton of snow already on the ground. You saw it there just a moment ago. 74 centimeters on the ground right now in Barrie, 90 centimeters on the ground in places like Orillia. To add to this, another 40 centimeters, which we'll see over the next 24 to 36 hours, could be comparable to the type of snow we had on the ground in 1999, the year that the Army was called in. Coming up later in the show, we'll go through the full timeline for those of you in parts of Toronto and Ottawa, including when you can see whiteout conditions. We'll also talk about the cold and lake effect snow that comes in on Monday, Gregory.
Thanks, Sophia.
You're welcome.
And turning to the election campaign trail in Ontario, it was relatively quiet after the major party leaders squared off at the first debate yesterday. But as Queen's Park reporter Lane Harrison shows us, it was still a day of announcements and attacks.
Only the Greens and the NDP held media events today, with NDP leader Marit Stiles staying in the north after the first debate, pitching her northern plan in Thunder Bay.
An NDP government will make highways safer, starting with widening Highway 11 and 17 and Highway 69.
Meanwhile, Green leader Mike Schreiner was in the Muskoka region with Matt Richter, who's hoping to become the third Green Party MPP in the legislature after losing by about 2,000 votes in the last election. Richter received an endorsement from 2 teachers' union locals.
This educational system deserves fairness, and it's been ignored for far too long. And I'm ready now more than ever to be a strong, independent voice for students, for teachers.
While they focused on provincial issues, the NDP candidate seeking re-election in Toronto's Spadina-Fort York went local.
There are coyote attacks on our pet dogs every day.
Chris Glover blamed the PC's redevelopment of Ontario Place for recent incidents with pets in the area, while the Ministry of Natural Resources maintains it found no coyotes on the site.
By clear-cutting Ontario Place and displacing all that wildlife and not providing any sort of supports to the community or to or to the city to deal with this crisis that they've created.
Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie and PC leader Doug Ford weren't in front of the Canadian cameras today after an at times fiery debate Friday.
None of what you're saying is actually true.
But Ford found time to join Fox News to talk tariffs.
You can't unscramble an egg. That's what he's trying to do. You got to make a larger omelet.
And his campaign machine was still on the attack back home, putting out a statement criticizing Ottawa Centre Liberal candidate Thomas Simpson for a 2014 social media post that reads, quote, "Consent is not sexy, #success." But the Liberals are firing back, saying in a statement that Ford must be desperate to be digging up old posts and, quote, "This is the guy who a week ago said he supported Donald Trump and pushed the death penalty behind closed doors." That's a reference to a recently revealed Ford comment where he said certain criminals should be sent to, quote, Sparky, a comment that his team has defended as a joke in poor taste. The Liberals also included several links to other previous comments that Ford has taken flack for. Now, the leaders will have another chance to attack each other in person at an upcoming debate at CBC in Toronto on Monday. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
And actually, here's the details for that debate hosted at the CBC Broadcast Centre. It will be another chance to hear how the leaders plan to address your priorities if elected Premier. You can see it wherever you watch or listen to CBC News. The Ontario Leaders Debate is Monday, February 17th at 6:30 p.m. And today marked 60 years since the adoption of the Canadian flag, and in the midst of Donald Trump's broadsides against Canada, it was an anniversary that resonated loudly across the country. The CBC's Nicole Williams reports.
Nothing subtle about it. This National Flag Day, Canadian pride is soaring.
It's the flag that I truly love, being Ukrainian and moving to Canada. And I wear it and, you know, it's part of my fashion statements.
I came to Canada as a 10-year-old. I loved Canada right from the beginning of my 10th year to the present.
Across the country, people are celebrating the maple leaf in a show of patriotism
Vive la Canada!
And an act of defiance, even in less than ideal weather.
Things seem to be heading in the worst possible direction. So it's time to stand up and be counted if you can stand up in the wind.
It's likely the first time many have actively celebrated since former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien declared National Flag of Canada Day in 1996. It commemorates the day the maple leaf officially replaced the Canadian red ensign as our official flag and flew over Parliament Hill for the very first time on February 15, 1965. Now, 60 years on, with the looming threat of a trade war with the U.S. and threats of another kind from the president.
I think Canada is going to be a very serious contender to be our 51st state.
All of Canada's living prime ministers have issued a call to action. Stand up to Donald Trump by celebrating our flag.
When somebody is actually challenging our identity as a country, we come together, and the flag is a great symbol for connecting us.
A rallying cry many are eager to answer.
We are Canadians! Yeah, tough and hardy!
He needs to know that we're a sovereign nation. We love who we are. We are Canadian.
So, this year's Flag Day, a clear message that Canadians want to stay Canadians. Whether that message is received by our neighbors to the south remains to be seen. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Toronto.
And Pierre Poilievre marked Flag Day with what he called a Canada First rally, but looked more like a campaign rally. It came with his poll numbers slipping amid the provocative statements from Donald Trump, and Poilievre made a point of tackling that issue head on.
Let me be clear. We will never be the 51st state.
The Conservative leader said Canada must respond forcefully to any U.S. tariff onslaught. He also touched on a number of familiar themes, including support for an oil pipeline exclusively on Canadian territory, fast-tracking other energy products, and significant tax cuts. And the federal government's GST and HST holiday comes to an end today, with some business owners and workers saying the savings had mixed results.
We're definitely going to miss it. Our customers are going to miss it. It's been a great perk for people. It's, you know, they're saving 13%. It's a huge savings for people. I wish they can never bring that back.
Customers were buying more products and they were more interested in the chocolates and everything.
because the prices were less.
It's a minor thing. It's not something you can say.
The 2-month tax break began on December 14. It was touted as a way to give Canadians a break on the cost of some essential goods. But some numbers and early assessments indicate spending during the holiday season was modest. People weren't putting money away either. The tax break did prove popular among restaurant owners, and some would like to see it become permanent. And hundreds of volunteers came together earlier to pack food donations during a special food sort organized by the Daily Bread Food Banks for Family Day weekend.
Things have absolutely gotten worse. Before the pandemic, we were seeing about 55,000 client visits per month. Now that number is around 330,000 at the Daily Bread Food Bank. And we know across Ontario, it's about 1 million Ontarians who are having to make use of food banks. And so this is an opportunity on Family Day weekend to do something about it.
The City of Toronto recently declared a food insecurity emergency with more than 1 in 10 Torontonians using food banks. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Hamas has released 3 Israeli hostages in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian inmates. It concludes this 6th swap under the Gaza truce deal, despite recent fears that the ceasefire was on the brink of collapse. The 3 men, including an American Israeli, were freed after nearly 500 days in captivity. One of them has now met his youngest daughter for the first time. There were emotional scenes as hostages met their loved ones. The captives were returned in exchange for 369 Palestinian detainees. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is urging European leaders to do more to counter the threat from Russia. And several key European officials say they will heed that call. Journalist Abby Kuathasan has more from Berlin.
There will be no peace deal without Ukrainian input. That's the message from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the Munich Security Conference. He urged allies to work out a common position before even thinking about sitting down with the Russian president. And he said security guarantees are absolutely critical.
We believe that the core of any security guarantees for Ukraine must be NATO membership, because at some point there will be a border between war and peace. Where that border is drawn and how strong it is up to us.
He also stressed that Kyiv will not agree to any kind of ceasefire without security guarantees that ensure the Kremlin does not attack Ukrainian territory in the future. Trump is calling on Europe to fend for itself. Allies have stepped up military spending and production since Russia's wider-scale invasion of Ukraine, but many acknowledge even more needs to be done.
There is an absolute commitment of the US, including this administration, to NATO, but also an expectation that on the European side we have to step up, we have to spend more, and they are right. We are not spending enough, so we have to do that.
In Munich, European allies were hoping for details on the new U.S. administration's approach to dealing with Russian President Vladimir Putin. What they'd heard before the conference wasn't what they wanted to hear. On Friday, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance seemingly brushed aside the ongoing war on European soil by saying Russia isn't the biggest threat to the continent. His address barely mentioned security. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was asked about that this morning.
Do you think there was anything in the Vice President's speech worth reflecting on?
Oh. You mean all this very relevant as discussions about Ukraine and security in Europe?
Frustration and concern in Europe that Trump appears to be on the road to appeasing Putin in order to get a quick deal done. Allies want to ensure the Russian president does not walk away with all his demands met at the expense of Ukrainians after bringing war back to the continent. Abby Kualdasin, CBC News, Berlin.
The Scotties Tournament of Hearts, one of the largest curling events, is back in Thunder Bay, with fans able to attend in person for the first time there since 1996.
Having nearly 2,500 people in the Fort William Gardens last night, I can tell you that there was a lot of people within the Curling Canada community and senior staff that was very relieved and very happy for the city of Thunder Bay that finally they could get the chance to fully embrace the Scotties Tournament of Hearts.
With the 2021 and 2022 tournaments bubbled and locked down by COVID, leading to that sense of relief for organizers this year. Curling Canada says the tournament could have a $6 to $9 million impact on the economy at restaurants and hotels. Home team Krista McCarville took silver the last time the event was in Thunder Bay. Expectations are so quite high as they face the #1 ranked team in the world from all the way in Ottawa tonight. Speaking of, here's a look at Ottawa right now. Also snowy conditions and feeling like -18. And Sophia is back. So Sophia, viewers in our nation's capital will definitely have to bundle up if they want to go out tonight.
Yeah, bundle up and shovel in stages. That is the message. And if you have any travel to do, folks, get it out of the way this evening if you can. Sunday will be the really treacherous travel day. Winter storm warnings are blanketing the region. I wanted to show you the system on radar. This is the appetizer course system. The second part of the system comes into the overnight period, tapping into a little more Gulf moisture. It will be the heavy hitter. A little bit of freezing rain right now as we speak in the London area. There will be a little bit of a lull into this evening. Don't let your guard down, folks. That's the time to go out and clear this first round of 5 to 10 centimeters before the next one comes in, because it's going to be the 20 to 40 centimeter system. Have a look at Sunday morning. The heaviest snow right above this mixing line. A little bit of freezing rain could push into the Niagara region. It's the QEW 401 corridor that is really going to take the hit, not only with the heavy snow, but also with these really impactful raw east winds and north and northwest winds as the wind switch happens into Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening. This is going to be a cold Monday as well. This system really pushes in, for those of you in the Eastern Ontario portion, into Sunday. Let's show you the timeline and pinpoint some of the areas to really take note. Saturday night, we still see periods of light snowfall. The winds are starting to pick up 30 to 40 kilometers an hour into Sunday morning. The heaviest snow and the blowing snow. For those of you in the GTA, coinciding with the strongest winds, this is when some areas locally, talking about that Niagara to Hamilton stretch and even into Eastern Ontario, could see blizzard-like conditions. In fact, for many of us in layman's terms, this is going to feel like a blizzard. Into Ottawa, Sunday afternoon and evening is when we will continue to see the whiteout conditions and the blowing snow. Let's talk about Monday for a minute. After we pass this next really hefty dose of snow into Monday, the cold and the lake effect potential really seeps in. In fact, the cold continues really for the next 14-day period with daytime highs below the freezing mark. Any snow you have is really going to stick around. Gregory.
All right. Well, we'll have our shovels ready until then. So thanks, Sophia.
Good luck. Stay warm.
Cheers. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, guys.